there's a wealth of knowledge out there, but you really have to take the time and have the patience. I mean, sometimes you look out and you'll find a contact on a brand's website, but a lot of times you kind of have to dig and dig.
That was Susan Palmer, and we're talking about improving your networking skills in order to work with brands on episode 52 of the Chopped podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. Thanks for joining me today for the 52nd episode of the Chopped podcast. You know, this is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. So what are we doing here? Well, each week my goal is to share with you thoughts, stories, interviews, everything related to food blogging so we can all learn together about what works with food blogging and maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. You know, I'm always so excited to be talking with you all, and especially today when I've got a great interview to share with you, and I think this is a topic everybody's been interested in, so I'm really excited. Today's guest is Susan Palmer, and she's with the site Girl in the Little Red Kitchen. I met Susan in October last year at the PMA Fresh Summit in Atlanta, and Susan and I, we just hit it off right away. We were laughing and schmoozing and eating our way through the entire conference. We had a great time. We met Guy Kawasaki too, so that was really fun. Anyway, one thing I noticed about Susan right away is that she has this way of networking with brands. She's very good at it. And not only did she, have a great way with people, I was able to watch her in action on site, but it was just obvious from listening to her talk about her site and the things that she's doing that she really knew a lot of people who work with brands, and she had turned her blog into a full-time job as a result of working with these sponsored posts. So I thought that was very intriguing, and I've heard from several of you that you're really interested in this topic, like how can we work with brands? How do we send pitches? How do we follow up? What can we expect with working with brands? And so I've asked Susan a lot of these very same questions. So I know this is going to be a topic that you're going to love. So why don't we get right to it? Okay, everyone, get out those earbuds, turn up the volume, and let's talk about all things food blogging and so much more. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Susan Palmer of the site Girl in the Little Red Kitchen on the show today. Susan, welcome to the Chopped podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here today, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you about, you have some really cool networking strategies, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you about that because it's such an important part for blogging. But first, let's just take a step back, and I was hoping you could give everybody a little bit of background and why it is that you started your blog.
Sure. So I started my blog about 4.5 years ago in 2011, mostly because I felt like I needed a hobby. I was cooking a lot, and I was kind of snapping really horrible photos and putting them on
We
Facebook.
all do at the beginning.
And I read a lot of blogs, so I was like, why don't I do one? That's kind of basically how everything started.
But it started out as a hobby then, huh? Not like
It did start as a hobby. I mean, I'd say like the first year, it was a hobby, and then I started to realize, hey, I can make money from this.
Why not, right?
So I started to take it, and every year progressed to be a little more serious, and then it became from I can make money into I could turn it into a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I imagine you must have had some interest in cooking for you to decide to start a food blog.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was cooking a lot. Honestly, I think I cooked more before I started my blog than I do now, which is kind of weird.
It makes sense. It's like a chef who doesn't want to cook when they get home,
Yeah, I know. Because I would just I would come home and I would after work and I would make these really elaborate dinners, and then I would spend all weekend cooking and baking, and I loved it, and and of course my husband was like, look at me, look at all I have the best life in the world because I have all these awesome
Yes.
dinners. And, I would bring my desserts into work and share everything with my friends, and I would have my friends over, and or I couldn't go anywhere without bringing something. So
Right.
I mean, I still can't go anywhere without bringing something. But
Yeah. So you just had this passion for cooking and said, okay,
Yeah,
I'm going to turn this into something more, sharing with my recipes with other people.
exactly.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, what about the food photography? I mean, you just said that, you started out with some awful photos. How did you develop that over the years?
Pretty much a lot of practice. I mean, my my dad loved photography. He loved taking photos, but it was of people and places, not of
Mm,
food. And so I took photography classes and when I was in high school and college. So I know film. I knew how to do film photography. I knew the basics of it, but after 10 years, I basically forgot all of it
yeah.
anyway. So I really had to teach myself from scratch.
Yeah. And did you end up getting a DSLR? I mean, did you start it with your iPhone? Or how did that
So I
happen?
started with a point and shoot, and I mean, it was bad. I took it, in my on my kitchen counter, under the kitchen
Oh,
lights
yeah.
at night. I mean, it was bad. But I actually, after 6 months, when I was like, hey, I'm actually going to continue with this, I went and I got a DSLR, and I it took time to like learn how to use it and how to go on to use it in manual and
Yeah.
figure out lighting and everything. And I mean I was just at a photography workshop last week, so it's I'm still constantly learning.
I know. That's the thing about, I don't know. I think you could say that about every part about food blogging, the photography, the writing, it just seems like it's a constant learning process.
Absolutely.
But particularly the food photography, it's like, it's funny because it's not like the subject is moving, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
yet there's so many parts of it. It's a complicated thing.
Well, I mean, it wilts a little bit, but
Oh yeah, that's true. Ice cream can melt.
yeah, it can melt. The greens can wilt, it can dry out on you, but you can fix that.
Yeah, exactly. The sandwich, like the bun will slide off.
Yeah, the cheese can seize.
Yeah. I think that kind of part of food styling is really fun, figuring out how to make it look good on the camera. It may look
Yeah,
weird on the plate, but
exactly.
I love that part.
But it's still being edible afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, that is the trick. Sometimes I've like, when I'm shooting something, it's not like I want to eat it right away. So, for example, a sandwich, I want to have like all that slathery mayonnaise on it. But what I'll do is I'll get a little piece of wax paper and put it so that the bun doesn't get any of the mayonnaise on it.
Yeah, I mean, like I spent an hour on a shoot yesterday.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, between setting it up and styling and I'm exhausted when I'm done.
No. And the kitchen is just a wreck, right? Like, I mean, there's
Like
just
my
stuff
my
everywhere.
office was a wreck,
Yes.
and my the kitchen was even worse. And then I was like, I'm laying down on the couch for half an hour. So it's
Yes.
I'm
But
like,
don't you love it though?
yeah, I put away the food and then I just went and I was, I'll deal with cleaning up later.
Yeah, I do that too sometimes. Okay, so is there any part besides the cleanup after a food shoot that, any part about food blogging that you really don't like very much?
The writing's kind of gotten a little tough for me.
Yeah.
Because after blogging for almost 5 years, I feel like I've said everything I've had to say.
Yes.
I mean,
It's a pie.
I'm like, can I just be like, this is delicious. Please, go ahead and make it. It's like, yeah, I live in New York and I do fun things when the weather's nice, but in the winter,
Yeah.
I don't do much. I'm like,
Yes.
I went, if
Yes.
it wasn't too cold, I went to the movies. I went to the gym today.
The new episode of Star Wars is really good. Yeah.
Like,
What do I
it's like,
say? Yeah.
I watch a lot of TV. I'm like, my life isn't very exciting.
Yes. I think that in some ways that must have been the magic of, have you seen that site, Thug Kitchen?
Yeah,
They don't really say much either. They're kind of like, eat this, it's good.
yeah, pretty
Except
much.
they throw some expletives in there.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's tempting to want to say that, like, you're going to like it, fix it, eat it.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
like I already I made this 2 times already, so
I love it. Actually, I have this really terrible idea. I thought, I can't even believe I'm telling you this, but I thought I would like to write a recipe and it would be called the worst chocolate cake ever. Because there's so many that say this is the best chocolate cake. It's like
yeah,
I want to do the opposite.
I know.
I won't do that, but it's kind of a fun thought.
Or be like, this was so good, I stood over my sink or my counter and I ate it all.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, forget the plate, forget the fork even, just eat it. Yeah.
I know. It's like hashtag truth.
Yeah, authenticity at its best. Okay, so is there anything about food blogging you just absolutely love?
Um, I love to eat,
Yeah.
which is why I started it because, I love food.
Yeah.
But I really have come to love taking the photos because, I mean, obviously that's why I spent an hour
Yes.
on one shoot. Yes.
It's such an expression of art, it seems like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, one of the main reasons I asked you to join me today is because, well, we met in Atlanta last year at the PMA Fresh Summit. And just to clarify for everybody listening, you and I just it's like we hit it off and we were just walking around just laughing all the time. So that explains the raucous laughter between our questions here.
We had a lot of fun.
We did, didn't we?
Yeah, it helped with all the massive amount of walking that we did that weekend.
Oh my gosh. I think one day I had like 14 or 15,000 steps.
I know.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. And it was a lot of schmoozing. And so just to be able to laugh in between all that it felt really good. I had a really good time.
Yeah, same here.
But one thing I learned as I was, walking around and laughing and eating with you is that you really do a great job with networking. I could just tell that, based on the stories that you talked about with the different brands that you work with. And it's a topic I hear from a lot of food bloggers, like they want to be better at networking. I was just wondering if you could talk about this a little bit and explain, how that, is that a skill that you've always had, or did you have to develop that when you started your blog?
I think it's something that I've had to work on, and I'm still kind of working on and finessing it a little bit. It's just I spend I spend a couple days a week doing a lot of research when it comes to finding who I want to reach out to brands with.
Mm-hmm.
Google is your best friend.
Yes. Yes.
Google and LinkedIn. I mean, there's a wealth of knowledge out there, but you really have to take the time and have the patience. I mean, sometimes you look out and you'll find a contact on a brand's website, but a lot of times you kind of have to dig, and then you realize that the person isn't there anymore, and so you have to.
Well, that's a good point, because I think what I'm hearing you say is like the big thing to do is you don't want to just send "Dear Sir" or "Madam." You want it to be a personal email, and so finding out who that contact is not always easy.
No, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time, and then because I mean, you could send a blanket email, and it might get to the right person, but it can sit unanswered, and it doesn't matter how many times you follow up. It's just gonna it's just never gonna be answered, and that I find is a waste of time.
Yeah.
So you're better off spending an hour or two researching one person and having it go to direct contact. And they may not answer the first time because their inboxes are busy.
Right.
But follow up a week or two later, because they might see the follow-up email. Like, don't be afraid. One thing you have to, don't be afraid to follow up. Because I follow up with if they haven't responded after the first time, I follow up with every single email that I sent.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. Don't be afraid to follow up. And I think also, don't be afraid to hear a no, right?
That's right. I mean, probably, if you send 20 emails, if you hear one yes back, then you're doing good. And that's pretty lucky.
Really? 20 emails and one yes is good. It's a good ratio.
It's a good ratio, and that's kind of luck. I mean, I send a lot of emails, and I get a lot of no, or not at this time, or we don't have the budget at this moment. And then I just ask them, when's a good time to follow up later in the year?
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's persistence. That's really nice.
I mean, if it's a brand that you really want to work with, then you can't give up.
Yes. I love that. And so, I was at a conference once where there was somebody from a brand speaking, and one thing they said, not only is it important to have the name of the person, but they said if there was a blogger, I mean, this was a really big company, so they got a lot of pitches from blogs. And her point was, if you could show that you've done some research, like, I saw your last campaign, it looked really great, and I would love to participate in something like that. Or, just showing that you paid attention to what the brand is doing is helpful.
Yeah. And if you if you're authentic and you do use the product, it doesn't, you put that in your pitch.
Yeah.
Tell them that you use it. If it's been in a blog post of yours, link to the blog post in your pitch also. You want to show them that you really are a fan.
I see. So that's a really good question because I think sometimes people are hesitant to mention a brand in their post because, why would they want to do that for free? But I think what I'm hearing you say is like it's a great kind of networking skill because you can show that you really have an interest in their product.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't always necessarily mention them like while I'm writing it,
Yeah.
but sometimes, if it's like something very specific when I'm writing
Hmm.
out the like ingredients, I might mention like such as so and
Yes.
like something like that.
And it's
So
not a link. Yeah.
so it's not a link or
Yeah.
anything, but it could be, you have like the option to get the generic or maybe that
Yes.
brand or something like that. Or, because like I do a lot of cocktails, so I tend to have the spirit bottle in there. So
Yeah.
obviously they're seeing that I'm using their brand of liquor,
Yes.
just in the photo or that
Right.
case, because so then you're not doing a written mention, but you're obviously showing the photograph of the product.
Exactly.
Especially if you're doing ingredient shots, you're not even writing about it, but you're showing that you're using it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, we're into food, right? So I think we have opinions about what is the best thing. Like, I've tried different products and I feel like this is what's going to make this recipe the best.
Yeah.
So I always feel, I always wonder about whether it's whether I should call that out or not. But I've kind of landed on I want to do what's best for my audience, and if I feel like, especially since I'm vegan and I've tried differently, like this vegan cream cheese is the one that you have to use. Otherwise you're going to waste your money and you're going to hate this recipe.
Exactly. I mean, I think it definitely works best if you have a specific niche.
Yeah.
For you for a vegan blog, if you're low carb or gluten free, like if
Yes.
anything's specifically niche and you know that you've tested it and it's because this one works the best, then
Right.
I don't think it hurts.
Cool. So has the opportunity to work with brands, has that been what really helped you turn your blog from, that where you started out with a hobby and now it's professional?
Oh yes, definitely.
Wow, that's great. That's really cool. Do you have a ratio then that you use of like, I mean, I hear some people who think that, you should have a small ratio of sponsored posts and others that, are, all over the board. I'm just curious if you found a ratio that's successful for you.
To be honest, I don't care when I do my top posts at the end of the year. A large amount of them end up being the sponsor posts. So my readers really don't mind them, but I write them in an authentic way
Yes.
that it isn't
Right.
all like this has been sponsored.
Right.
So you
Exactly.
just you have to continue to write it in your own voice. And again, if you're pitching the brands that you normally use and you normally enjoy, it's a lot easier to write it in an honest way. And
That's,
it isn't so much a big fat ad.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I wonder if you could just like keep a list in your kitchen of like, and just write down these are the brands that I work with the most and then just reach out to them.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I do. It's kind of like when I'm, at the grocery store and because I don't think about it all the time, like who am I going to pitch today? So like I have like a running tab. It's like, oh right, I I keep buying this brand. Why don't I pitch them? But then
Yes.
I also do some research to see have they worked with bloggers? Do they have recipes on their website? So I do a little research, to make sure that I'm not wasting my time. That if they've never worked with Blogger before, they're probably not going to work with me.
Yeah. However, I actually have had experience with pitching a few brands that I liked. And then sometimes their response is, we're not working with bloggers at this time, but we're going to put your name on a list. And so that's a good response too, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, I guess, it's just like it matters how much you want to work with that brand. If even if they haven't previously worked with bloggers, then, at least your name is being considered.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so you sound so seasoned now, Susan. And so I'm just curious, at the beginning, was it hard?
It was. And I mean, it was probably even up until last year. I mean, last year I started pitching on a regular basis, but even before that, I wasn't pitching that regularly.
And so, do you have any tools that you use to help you track those kind of things? Like, do you keep a spreadsheet of, I would be worried I'd send the same pitch out to the same company.
Yeah, I mean, I keep a spreadsheet. I don't delete anything in my email also.
Oh yeah. Drives my husband crazy. I do the same thing.
I know.
Yes.
Inbox zero is not a thing that I
Like what? I can't even think
like.
about
What
that.
is that? No.
Inbox zero to me means there are no unopened emails in my inbox. That means I've gotten to inbox zero.
I'm like, the idea is nice, but I don't think that would ever.
Yes, exactly. When I actually realized what they meant by inbox zero, that it means like nothing is in your, I just think that's just crazy.
I know.
I'm sure it's wonderful to all you people who have inbox zero. I'm really impressed. So I
Same
just
here, but
I just can't imagine getting there.
I'm like, I have to be able to look up anything. I'm like, I know all the emails get archived, but I'm like paranoid that I'm never gonna be able to find them in the archive.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so can we talk about your pitch? I'm curious. I mean, do you go into a lot in your initial pitch or do you try to keep it kind of short?
It's pretty short. It's three short paragraphs.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That way you're not going into a lot of extraneous information if they don't need it, just
No, yeah, and I don't really go into like specific ideas either.
okay.
I keep it pretty broad.
Do you have a media kit that you send with that email?
Only if they write back and request it.
I see. So you probably would say something like, I've got a media kit available if you want it.
I actually don't even say that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I leave that up to them.
Okay. I
Yeah.
see. If their response is, we'd like to see a media kit, you've got it. And yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I've heard some people say that a lot of brands, like maybe previously they were looking for mega page views, but there's been kind of a shift lately, and brands are not necessarily so worried about page views. They're more worried about engagement and good photography, things like that.
As a small blogger, I will have to agree with that.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think that's encouraging to people. They can understand that you don't have to have like a million page views a month to do this.
Yeah. Because I mean, my my audience is, it's very I don't want to say it's local, but it's definitely a very, it's people that love food and love to cook, and I don't make recipes for kind of like your everyday occasional cook. So I have a very specific audience. So my blog readers and readership is small, and I'm okay with that. But I do have good engagement on everything, and I have readers that come back and make my recipes and comment.
Oh, that's
And and that's what I lead with. And my social media engagement is good, and I think that's what you know if that's what works for you, definitely lead with that with the brands.
Well, we should clarify because what's local for you may be like a whole state for somebody else, and that because you're in New York City.
Right. Well, and I would say also, because my readers are more urban based. So, and that's what I kind of go. I'm like, my readers are in big cities because
Yeah.
that's kind of what I write towards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how much do you think of the sponsored work that you do is based off of your initiation versus brands reaching out to you?
I would say a large part is my initiation.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. That means, in other words, if you're not hustling and getting out there and doing it, it wouldn't be happening.
Yes. Yeah.
Very
It's
cool.
yeah, it's got to be, you have to be motivated to do it. And I'm motivated because I need the paycheck.
Because the end of the month is coming quickly. We got to.
There are bills to pay.
Yeah. So I know that working with brands can be kind of tricky. I'm sure the goal at the end of the project is to, deliver to them what they want. But I mean, do you ever have trouble or can you provide any tips at least on the best way to work with brands? I mean, do you, can communicate with them throughout the campaign or things like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess knock wood, I've been pretty lucky with the brands that I've worked with. I mean, I communicate, I want to know what they're looking for. I like to, I tell them the recipe that I want. So I want to, what I'm going to plan on making. So that way, if there are any changes or if it's not jiving with them, we can fix that before I even get started.
Yeah.
If there's a draft that they needed, we want to get that done in writing in the contract beforehand. So there are no surprises.
Yes.
And you want a contract also.
Yes, exactly.
Contracts are very important.
Yes.
And then, you just, I stay in touch. So when the post goes up, I send them the post link and the social media links. And then even 30 days after, I always send a recap. And I know some people don't like to do that. Some people do, but I personally do because it's just, I find it professional
Yeah.
and it just lets them know that they're getting their money's worth from me.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah,
then they might want to work with you again, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, the recap would probably be like how many social shares that you did and things like that.
Yes. And I do, I mean, I include the page views even if the post didn't do as well because I mean, for the most part, it's my older posts that do better than new, but sometimes
Yes,
the new posts will really hit it off.
right.
And so, but I want them to see how the engagement is.
It's
Um,
it seems like that's more and more lately, don't you think?
yes.
It seems to me like lately, I mean, before I could get a lot of, traffic quickly, like through Pinterest or things like that. And lately it seems like that's more of a slow build.
It is a slow build, but you never know when something is gonna. I don't
Yes.
want to say go
Oh,
viral,
right. Yes.
but it's just gonna kind of hit it off with your readers,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's at least for me, it's the Google searches, and that's why it's always kind of the slow build. It's just it takes time to get into those search engines and people to look for it. And my recipes are seasonal, so it might take a year again for someone to start searching for that specific recipe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I'm just curious, have you ever had any, you don't have to name any names, but
Yeah.
do you have any unreasonable requests from brands?
Um, I think the worst was that, and this was written into the contract, so they couldn't do it. They wanted to put do follow links in there, but
Mm,
I was like, well, it said no follow, so
yes.
and that, I mean that was really kind of the worst of it all.
I've heard some, I mean, I've not only just heard this, I've
Yeah,
participated in projects where brands kind of change I always call it scope creep, where they
yeah,
start to, oh, well, we want a photo that has the brand, like this. And, they like change all this stuff and it can make a project really complicated.
yeah. Oh wait, actually, I did have a bad one once
Okay.
where I had to reshoot a turkey.
Oh, no. That's not good. Huh? You do actually go out and get another one?
Uh-huh. And that
Wow.
it was getting like closer to Thanksgiving, so I was having trouble finding a fresh turkey. So I basically had to run around town until I found a fresh turkey.
Hopefully
Yeah,
they, made it worth your while.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that one was rough. And then that Thanksgiving, I made us prime rib because I was like, I can't eat turkey
You were
anymore.
so sick of turkey at that point. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, you talked about the follow up. I'm just curious, have you ever asked for any kind of evaluation, like so that you could get some testimonial from one and then use that in working with another brand?
Um, Actually, I had one brand give me an evaluation himself without asking for it.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, so I'm actually just waiting to hear back to see if I can put it on my media kit or my portfolio site. And it was very nice, and it had to do because I sent a follow up report every time, and it was just how professional and how great I was to work with, and so it pays off.
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
really cool. I mean, I imagine that helps you stand out as well.
I think so. I hope so.
Well, I'm just curious, what do you do with all those unsolicited requests that come in? Sometimes I feel like my inbox is just, I mean, I know every blogger goes through this where you're getting pitches from, you can't even tell if it's a pitch, that they're going to be sponsoring you or not. They just want to talk about this new product that they've launched.
Yeah.
Do you, do you act on those or you just ignore them?
So some of them I delete. You just kind of have a feeling if
Yeah.
it's going to be not worth your time, and some of them I follow up on. Most of them, they have no budget, which
Yes.
you usually figure that's the case. There's one now that I'm in talks with. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere or not, but it doesn't hurt. I think you have to use your gut whether you feel like it's going to be worth your time or not.
Got you.
Yeah.
Do you ever do free work?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any other things you want to point out regarding, working with brands and the and the networking part of that?
I don't think so. I think we
Yeah.
covered most.
I think we talked about a lot there. So I
Yeah.
was just hoping we could talk a little bit about your blog, in general, like how long did it take you before you actually quit your job and you were doing your blog full time?
I quit my job almost a year ago, so it was the end of March. So I was doing my blog for almost 4 years.
I see. So that's a good amount of time. That's probably reasonable, isn't it? To build up your site and build up the traffic to the
Yes.
point that and you probably have to work with a few brands before you start getting enough money to come in.
Oh yeah, I definitely. And I mean, I honestly, I was not happy at my job, so I wanted to quit way before that. But
Yeah. You had to have patience, huh?
I did have to have patience.
That's a long time to be working full time and to be doing the blog on a professional level for 4 years is a long
Right,
time.
and I was running my bake shop, so I was basically I was working 7 days a week.
Oh,
So
that's right. Let's clarify that for everybody.
yes,
You have a bake shop. It's an online bake shop, right?
yes, yeah.
Has that helped in any way, like with networking with brands too, or is there it's
Um, I don't think
unrelated?
so because they're
Yeah.
separate, and I'm actually getting ready to take the bake shop because the bake shop lives on my blog now, and I'm
Uh-huh.
actually getting ready to separate the two. Because sometimes I wonder if they see it and brands get a little confused.
Oh, is
Um,
this a bake shop? Is this a blog? What is this?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm
Uh-huh.
actually getting ready to separate it, so it's two distinct entities. Um, but yeah, so it was a lot of work when I was working full time and running a full time blog and a part time bake shop. So
Yes. Well,
yeah,
the thing I like about it though is that the bake shop part can get you out, right? I mean, you're trying to sell your baked goods to people outside of the blogging community or the foodie community, and I think that's really important sometimes.
yes, exactly. Because I do markets, so I'm
Yes,
I'm out, and I mean that's kind of the other thing is I'm hustling for that. So I'm basically hustling all the time.
you
So
are.
yeah.
When do you have time to bake? You work it in.
Um,
Yeah.
when an order comes in, I bake.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say I have a set schedule because it's constantly moving around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's nice sometimes. I mean, there are times I have to be honest, I crave some more structure around my schedule, but for the most part, I really love having the flexibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like some weeks, I will work Monday through Friday, and I do take the weekends off because you have to give yourself time off. If you're
Right.
working all the time, you're going to be burnt out, you're going to go crazy.
Yeah.
And then there are other times where I'll do a market and I'm baking on the weekend. So then I might take Monday or like Friday off or something. But I always give myself days off, whether it's actually a traditional weekend or during the week.
Oh, that's so smart. Like I kind of do the same thing. I try to make my Fridays always meeting free day.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
if I'm going to do a call or a conference call, it's almost never on a Friday because I just, whatever. I have other things I'm going to do. I'm not necessarily not working, but I'm just not in meetings.
Yes.
So I'm just curious about your blogging process because this is like one of my favorite questions to ask people because I feel like everybody does this differently and maybe it's just my intrigue of the topic, but do you plan your post out into the future or do you, like you're working today on what's going to go on the site, on Monday or whatever?
No, I plan in advance. I keep an editorial calendar.
I kind
So
of thought you would.
yeah, I mean, I try and cook a couple weeks in advance. Obviously, if it's a sponsored post, I definitely do that way in advance. But if it's a non-sponsored post, even those, I just like being in advance. I can only go so far in advance because I may not have like fresh produce available to me.
Hmm.
But definitely a couple weeks out. So I tend to cook and photograph. But then I usually do the editing and writing a little closer to when I'm going to post.
I see. So you can have the photographs done for a post that's going to be 2 weeks from now, but you may not do the writing till the week of.
Right.
Ah, that's good. That's
Yeah,
really good. I guess it helps keep the writing a little bit more fresh and relevant too.
exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes I actually keep my computer in my kitchen because as I'm cooking, I'll have an idea will pop in my head like, oh, I should talk about this, and then if I don't write it down, then
Yeah.
when I go sit to my computer, it's gone.
Yeah. I mean, I need to kind of get into the habit because I write in my head a lot.
Yes, me
And
too.
then I don't write it down, and then I'm like, what was I gonna say?
I know, it drives me crazy.
Yeah,
I sit in front of that blank screen. And it's like
I know.
nothing. And then I go back to, this is really good. You should try some.
I was like, I had a story to tell.
I
I
know.
lost it.
There's something about cooking. It's like some meditative state that comes
Yeah.
over you, I think. I love it. Okay, so do you have a favorite social media platform that you use?
It's been Instagram lately.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's so beautiful,
I know.
Instagram is.
I know.
Yeah.
I
Now,
have
is
fun.
that your favorite one for traffic or is it just because it's just fun?
It's just fun.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
imagine Pinterest is probably, it seems like Pinterest is the one everybody goes to for traffic.
yeah. I would say so.
Yeah. Do you have
Yeah.
any favorite tips for how you use Pinterest?
Um, not really. I'm not really. I don't really win at Pinterest. I use Tailwind.
I do too.
I just schedule it out, and at the beginning of every month, I kind of go into my archive for like the past years,
Yeah.
and I pin away, and then I just I pin in a group board and stuff,
Yes.
to kind of pin other bloggers' content, and that's basically what I do.
Do you use their interval pinning tool?
I do. I love it.
I love that
I
tool.
know. It's
Just so
great.
everybody knows, Tailwind has a, I don't know what they call it. It's just the process. So you pick a pin and then you can pin it out to a bunch of different boards that you're on, and it'll do it one day at a time.
Yeah.
It's my favorite. Once I discovered that, it's like changed things for me.
Yeah. It makes it really easy. And I can, you can get it done pretty quickly too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then I go in, I don't know if it's necessarily daily, but I think it's probably close to daily, and just do a few on the fly of just, pins in real time to mix it
Yes.
up.
Yeah. I'll pin in real time a couple times a week also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your number one tip for helping other bloggers who may be trying to grow their audience?
Um, I just be authentic, be who you are. Don't I just don't really copy other people.
Yes.
Like I think, being yourself will come across and your readers will appreciate that.
It's so true. And I totally understand it because it's so tempting to go, oh, look how successful they are. I'm going to do
Yeah.
what they're doing because it's just like it feels like a template in front of you. But I think
Yeah.
if you can go through the hard work of knowing yourself and knowing what your audience wants and doing that, it's so important.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it feels better too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you'll love what you're doing too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Then you love it more because it's your thing. It's not like, I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's coming up next for you? Anything that you can share?
Um, well, at the end of March, I'll have my new shop will be launched.
Ah, I can't wait to
So
see it.
yeah, so it's a lot of work I've got going on in the next 6 weeks, kind
Oh,
of getting everything ready for that.
sounds exciting. I want to go check it out.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Okay, couple of fun questions here at the end of the interview. So, what's one food item you can't live without?
Chocolate.
I love chocolate. It's so good. Do you have a favorite kind?
I'm a dark chocolate person.
Yeah, I knew there was something I liked about you, Susan.
Yeah.
So, like, do you eat it just plain? Do you melt it and put it over ice cream? What do you do?
No, I like it plain.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
won't refuse it any other way, but I'm fine with just like a bar.
And just like break off a chunk and eat it. And
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
husband and I have been getting these at Costco. It's dark chocolate covered dried fruit.
Ooh, that
Oh
sounds
man, it's so good.
yeah.
Okay, so what's a favorite app on your phone?
Um, oh,
I should do a drum roll.
I know. I mean, I guess. I mean, I like Instagram.
That is so lame, Susan. You
I
already
know.
said Instagram. You,
Oh,
you don't have any other app on your phone?
um,
Maps?
what?
Maps?
Maps? Google Maps?
Yeah, Google
I do
Maps.
use my Google Maps a lot.
I love Google Maps. Isn't it the greatest?
It is. It's great. I use it a lot.
Podcast? You have a podcast app?
Oh, I do like the Stitcher app.
I don't have that. Is it good?
It's good. You're on there.
Yeah, I did know that.
You're on my favorites list.
But I never have tried it for listening to podcasts. I just use the podcast app on my iPhone.
Yeah, no, I like Stitcher a lot because you can do listen later on there. So, like, if I'm riding in the subway, I don't have to have service for it.
Yes.
So it's really nice. So, like, I can, you know, like, have Serial on there. I have a couple of like culture podcasts on there.
Yeah.
So I just like I'll put them on for listen later, and then I can pretty much listen to it wherever. I don't necessarily have to have service on my phone.
So are you listening to season 2 of Serial?
I am.
That is really good.
It is good.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a very different feel though than the first season.
Yes, that's so true. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm kind of intrigued to find out what happens next because I really haven't followed the story very much, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, like season 1 had you like very on the edge of your seat,
Yes.
and like I mean this season 2. I mean it's a great season, but
Yeah.
it's a different feel.
Yeah, the thing
Yeah.
I did differently is I waited till Serial 1 was all done and I listened to them all at the same time. That's when I haven't had no self-control.
So did I.
Yes. I think I like it better when I wait till it's all done and then I can just listen to them all at once. I've listened to this podcast called Food Nonfiction.
Uh-huh.
I bet you would like that one because they're really short and they just kind of go into different, you know, like the history of popcorn or I don't know. I just kind of I get kind of weirded. I mean, nerded out by that. I love it.
Yeah.
But okay, do you have any time for TV at all? And if so, what's your favorite show?
Yes, I watch way too much TV. Well, let's see. Well, so I watch a lot of sci-fi.
Okay.
So I just finished watching the Expanse on Sci-Fi, which was really good. I'm a little ashamed to admit this, I'm rewatching all of Stargate SG-1 right now.
Why are you embarrassed to admit that?
Um,
Is it not a good show?
it's a little bit cheesy.
Oh. Well, cheesy and sci-fi kind of goes together,
I
don't
know.
you
So
think?
when
Sorry.
my husband isn't home, that's what I watch. We just finished watching Jessica Jones.
Oh, okay.
It was really good. I watch it on TV. This could go on for a long time, so I should stop.
Well, it's funny that you say that's kind of cheesy because like we went and watched the latest Star Wars and then we had to like come back and we on Netflix our queue was we had all the old ones delivered to us and we watched them all in order and oh my God, talk about cheesy. Those first ones are so cheesy.
Yeah, we found the Christmas special, the Star Wars Christmas special.
I haven't seen that. Is it good?
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
And it's horrible.
No.
I mean, we like stopped watching it after 5 minutes.
It was that bad, huh?
5 minutes in.
That's good. Well, okay, Susan, how can people find you online?
So you can go to girlinthelittleredkitchen.com. And from there, you can click on one side that'll take you to my blog, and the other side that'll take you to my shop. And you should order something because the cookies are delicious.
Yes.
And they're made with mostly organic ingredients, so they're wholesomely delicious.
Wholesomely delicious is even better. Yeah. But Twitter and Facebook, all that stuff?
Yes. All my links are on there, and all the names are long and weird, so it's just better to get my social media from my website.
I love it. Susan, I always have such a great time talking with you, so thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks to Susan Palmer for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you were busy running around and couldn't jot down something important, don't worry, we took the notes for you. Just head on over to choppedcon.com where I put up links for each show, including the stuff we talked about today and more information about our guests. I hope you're loving the Chopped Podcast. If so, it would mean the world to me if you'd head over to iTunes or Stitcher and give it a review. You can do that right now. Also, you can spread the word about the Chopped Podcast using hashtag ChoppedCon on Twitter or Instagram or even Facebook. Your shoutouts really mean a lot. You inspire me so much, so I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks so much for listening and have a great week.